From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Soini Gray. We begin in Venezuela, where all eyes are on the talks with the opposition, which were due to reconvene about now in the Dominican Republic. Before he left Caracas, the head of the government delegation and Minister of Communications, Jorge Rodriguez, said everything was ready for a final agreement. He said one of the difficulties at the negotiations is the deep divisions among the opposition parties, but he insisted the agreement is drafted and they agree on 99.9% of the points, including an international observation mission during the elections.
On the dialogue, there have been many attempts to boycott it. We are ready. We know the position is almost ready. So let's sign the agreement today. Today, February 5th, 2018, is the day.
And on Sunday, thousands of Venezuelans used the anniversary of Hugo Chávez's rebellion to support the call for elections and an agreement with the opposition.
Thousands of people marched on Sunday in Caracas to commemorate the civil-military rebellion led by Hugo Chávez against Carlos Andrés Pérez.
We are here to remember this day of dignity. The commander Chávez came out and said, "For now," and we want to make that into forever.
This Caracas resident is talking about the famous phrase, "for now," coined by President Hugo Chávez when the rebellion wasn't fulfilled. A few years later, Chávez took office. It was 1998, and it was the start of the Bolivarian Revolution.
Today, here's the strength of the people of Venezuela, transmitting it to the whole world, saying that in the union lies the strength, and for them to be heard by those who try to oppress them.
The Venezuelan people continue working on the Plan de la Patria, the government plan for 2019 to 2025. Also, during this weekend, its proposals were discussed by more than 3 million Venezuelans.
Why is the Plan de la Patria important? Because it gives more power to the people against this economic war that is hitting us hard. With this plan, we will achieve peace and production.
This 4F comes at an important time, close to the presidential elections and a new round of negotiations to achieve definitive peace and coexistence between the government and the opposition in the Dominican Republic.
The Venezuelan delegation, led by Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, is ready to travel to the Dominican Republic to sign a final agreement for peace. The opposition is divided once again, but I tell you, I have received information that tomorrow the National Electoral Council is going to set the date for the presidential elections.
President Maduro has insisted the date of these elections needs to be known as soon as possible.
The attempt to reach a final agreement with the Venezuelan opposition comes as the United States Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, threatened more sanctions against Venezuela, this time targeting the oil. The Communications Minister, Jorge Rodriguez, warned Tillerson that this could backfire.
We will see who is most affected, whether it would be Venezuela with a sanction on selling oil to the U.S. or the people of the U.S. and the oil companies. We are ready to face this and other types of sanctions.
And the U.S. Secretary of State has just arrived in Peru on the latest stop of his Latin American tour. The Foreign Minister, Castellana Aljoven, promised Rex Tillerson that her country will continue working with the U.S. to fight drug trafficking. The promise comes after President Donald Trump threatened to curb aid to so-called drug hotspots. Peru is one of the world's top cocaine producers. In the same press conference, Tillerson said the United States recognized its need to reduce its demand for drugs. Our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, has more on Tillerson's visit.
Tomorrow he will meet President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. In this meeting, they will plan the next summit of the Americas, which will take place here in Lima. U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to attend the summit. There are various organizations that have rejected Tillerson's arrival because they feel his visit to neoliberal countries may be a plan for a military intervention in Venezuela. They have also rejected the arrival of Tillerson in Peru, after the U.S. recently withdrew itself from the Paris Agreement, an agreement which tries to reduce global warming. Peru is known as one of the countries most affected by global warming. Currently, Peru is facing the consequences from natural events, such as deaths and the reduction of water. They have also rejected Tillerson's arrival, as the U.S. currently has xenophobic policies which they say have affected millions of Latinos and Peruvians who currently live in the United States. Back to you.
We thank Jaime Herrera for that report. Rex Tillerson is due to end his regional tour in Jamaica, where the Jamaica Peace Council has called on the Prime Minister Andrew Holness to explain the visit. In a statement, the council refers to President Trump's insulting remarks about Caribbean and African nations and says it has seen no condemnation of these by the Prime Minister. Why are we entertaining Tillerson at us, and is he coming to drive a wedge between us and Venezuela? Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has welcomed comments from the Chinese government on the benefits of trade between the two countries. Speaking in Beijing, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang praised the financial cooperation as a win-win situation and criticized recent comments from the U.S. Treasury.
The U.S. comments in question are baseless and irresponsible. China-Venezuela financial cooperation are undertaken between the two sides' financial organization and enterprises, in accordance with mutually beneficial and commercial interests. All loan contracts signed are completely in accordance with international standards, and all operations are carried out within the law. The results they have attained have enriched the lives of local residents.
Ecuador voted on Sunday to prevent unlimited re-election of public officials, effectively barring the former president, Rafael Correa, from running again for president in 2021. The National Electoral Council said around 64% of voters supported changing the rules on term limits. Voters also backed 6 other questions proposed by President Lenin Moreno, one of which will probably result in Correa's supporters being removed from key oversight positions. The others dealt with land speculation, oil and mining production, and stronger penalties for corruption and child sex abuse.
Everyone, beginning with the government, is obliged to make true this mandate without any delay. We are obliged to respect and honor the voice of our people, to be consistent with this clear and powerful victory that the yes had.
The former president, Rafael Correa, had been campaigning for a no vote to 3 of the questions. He told Telesur that his campaign had been silenced by the media and that the result was a good starting point for future opposition.
To anyone who knows Ecuador's politics, this is a great triumph for our political movement. To obtain 36% of the results while campaigning against everyone from the far right to the far left, with the media informing in favour of the government and against us, with a biased National Electoral Council that didn't allow our propaganda for close to 10 days, we obtained 36% of the votes in the questions we campaigned for people to vote no on. Those were questions 2, 3 and 6. They obtained 64%, but 37 political organisations were campaigning for a yes vote.
We take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting on. Welcome back. Elections in Costa Rica will go to a second round on April the 1st after no candidate won a majority on Sunday. Fernando Francis tells us more in the next report.
Two parties with diametrical visions for the country are going through to the second electoral round. The first one is Fabricio Alvarado, leader of evangelic churches, representing the party Restauración Nacional. He's got around 25% of the ballots. The other one is Carlos Alvarado, representing the ruling party Acción Ciudadana, who's got around 21% of the ballots. Lower on the list, there are other 11 candidates who didn't make it to the second round. After their defeat, many of them expressed their support to Fabricio Alvarado, the leader of the churches, who is ahead after the first round. The second round will take place the 1st of April, between both of the candidates with the same last name, but with totally different points of view. The one from Acción Ciudadana with a progressive vision, and the other holding an ultra-conservative position regarding the social aspect as well as the economic, and who may associate with the other parties which are strong in the Legislative Assembly. The party with the bigger numbers in the Assembly is Liberación Nacional, followed by Restauración Nacional, which moved from having 1 deputy in the Assembly to 14. It's one of the biggest gains in the country over the last few years. Both of these parties share similar points of views about economic issues, and together easily have a simple majority. If they team up with other conservative parties, they can even get qualified majority for the progressive front made by Acción Ciudadana and Frente Amplio. There are only 11 assembly representatives out of 57. This is the legislative panorama in Costa Rica today. We still have to wait to see which development plan will be chosen by the people on April the 1st.
In Panama, a victory for the LGBTI community in the fight for the same-sex marriage and gender identity to be recognized. But conservative groups are pressuring the country to go on a different path. We have more in this report.
The Electoral Tribunal said same-sex marriages celebrated outside Panama can now be registered in the country. People will also be able to register their gender identity on official documents, a breakthrough achieved by the LGBTI community. This decision came after the Inter-American Court of Human Rights defended same-sex couples.
La opinión consultiva que hizo la CIDH. The defense of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights opens the road for Panama's court to favor human rights. As a group, this decision gives us an alternative to turn to an organization that will protect our collective rights.
The Inter-American Court's decision could lead to the Supreme Court in Panama to file a constitutional challenge against the article that allows marriage only between heterosexual couples.
It's important for LGBTI groups to organize and to support those people who have to face legal measures. We know what the Inter-American Court of Human Rights will say, and it would be a shame if Panama doesn't change its laws, according to what the International Court is saying.
In spite of this, conservative groups in the country are fighting against this measure and have pressured public officials.
Panama
is a republic, and as such, the republic has to defend all human beings, and that includes all the people that conform the LGBTI community, women and any other person that is part of a minority. That protection includes equal rights, including civil rights.
Close to 200,000 people are part of Panama's LGBTI community. These measures could alleviate years of discrimination in a country where homosexuality only stopped being a crime in 2008.
In Bolivia, thousands in the central and south were affected over the weekend by heavy flooding. Civil defense workers on Sunday delivered aid to flood victims and helped some residents evacuate Tarija, located near the border with Argentina. In more northern Potosi, residents struggled to rescue belongings from homes. Some 50,000 families have been left homeless since the beginning of the rainy seasons, and officials believe it could get worse. The Guyanese Prime Minister Moses Nagamoto has announced a nationwide civic education campaign on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. Prime Minister Nagamoto recently welcomed a decision by the UN Secretary to take the matter regarding the territory known as the Essequibo to the International Court of Justice. Both Venezuela and Guyana say they're committed to increasing dialogue And a statement by the Bolivarian government said that Venezuela is committed to reaching a peaceful agreement through negotiations based on the 1966 Geneva Accord. They are battening down the hatches in Dominica. The foreign minister has warned the nation that the hurricane season is just 5 months away.
These extreme weather events are going to be the new normal. And it cannot be business as usual. We have to find creative ways of dealing with the situation that we're faced with now. I cannot say that we have identified at this point innovative ways of dealing with it. What we are embarking on is a process of consultation, wide consultation locally, and drawing on the experience of our international partners.
The nation is still trying to recover from Hurricanes Irma and Maria last year. So far, electricity has only been restored to 10% of the population. The cost of recovery stands at about $1.4 billion. That's 2.5 times its GDP. The Prime Minister has called on the international community to scale up investments to help build a climate change resilient country. In Brazil, dancers from various samba schools in Rio de Janeiro did their technical rehearsals for the city's famous carnival parade due to start on February 9th. Drummers, dancers and revelers filled the samba drone, dancing energetically to the beat of samba drums. In the carnival competition, several samba schools will be judged on choreography, atmosphere, organization and singing. Some people were unhappy not all samba schools were able to rehearse at the samba drone this year due to a lack of funding. In Haiti, the carnival has already started. Thousands of people filled the streets of Jacmel on Sunday to celebrate the start of carnival with masked dancing and music. But for some residents, the carnival won't be the same this year due to the absence of the former Haitian president and musician Michel Martelly. The local cultural committee banned his participation over what they say is the racy content of his more popular songs. And we'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting on. Welcome back. In Syria, 23 people were killed by airstrikes that hit the district of Ghouta just outside Damascus. Ghouta has been besieged by the Syrian and Russian military and has become the largest remaining rebel stronghold near Damascus. International concern has grown after bombing increased in the area in recent months, also leading to food and medicine shortages. A 15-day state of emergency has been declared in the Maldives amid intensifying political tension. The government has suspended parliament. It has also ordered the army to stop any moves by the Supreme Court to impeach President Abdullah Yameen. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged 1,175 points on Monday, the largest one-day point dive in its history. Just a week ago, Trump was taking credit for the state of the economy in his State of the Union address and has discussed hitting the 30,000 mark, tweeting several times since his election on the increase in U.S. stock markets. This is the worst points drop since September 2008. And Jerome Powell has been sworn in as the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve on Monday, succeeding Janet Yellen. Powell said his decisions on monetary policy would support strong job growth and price stability, adding that the Fed would pursue its policies with objectivity, independence, and integrity. Powell joined the Fed as a governor, appointed by then-President Barack Obama in 2012, the year the Fed adopted a 2% target for annual inflation. The South Korean appeals court has suspended a jail sentence for the Samsung Group heir Lee Jae-yong. Last August, the 49-year-old billionaire was sentenced to 5 years in prison on charges linked to a political scandal that took down the former South Korean president Park Geun-hye. The court upheld part of the conviction but cut his jail term in half and used its discretion to release Lee. This sets Lee free just after a year's detention.
I'm truly sorry once again for not showing the good side to everyone. For the past year, it has been very precious time where I could look back on myself. I will look around more carefully and do my best.
Denmark's Tivoli Garden, the second largest amusement park in the world, is celebrating its 175th anniversary with a winter light festival. The festival features a gigantic Greenland igloo, an icy forest, and an octagonal ice skating rink with 200,000 lights. The display kicked off the Copenhagen Light Festival, which will run until March 2nd. In England, thousands of health workers, unions, and activists marched on Saturday to protest against funding cuts to the National Health Services, or NHS. The demonstration moved from central London to the Prime Minister's residence on Downing Street as thousands defended the UK public health system. Protesters blame UK Prime Minister Theresa May and her Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Jeremy Hunt, for the current situation in the NHS.
This is an emergency march in protest about the winter crisis. Winter crisis in inverted commas. This is a political crisis of the government's attitude to the NHS, which is deliberately trying to destroy it. It's defunded it for 8 years running. We're now 25% underfunded. They're privatising it. They had the gall to say that the NHS was best prepared ever this winter, and then they cancelled 50,000 elective operations in January to cope with the mess that they've created. Dozens of people have had avoidable deaths. They've died waiting for ambulances, or in the backs of ambulances, in the car parks waiting to be transferred to the A&E, or in the A&E waiting for treatment. There is literally blood and death on the hands of Hunt, of May and of Hammond. It's a disgrace. They either have to fund the NHS and stop privatising, or they have to get out.
Let's have a look at some other stories from around the world.
Boko fighters have stormed a village in Nigeria, murdering 2 civilians. The attack happened at Alo-Kofu village, 12 kilometers from Maiduguri, the capital of unrest-hit Borno State. Thousands of protesters have rallied against the shutdown of several media outlets in Nigeria. Meanwhile, police officers used tear gas to disperse a march. The KTN, NTV, and Citizen television channels have been off-air after choosing to broadcast the symbolic inauguration of defeated opposition leader Raila Odinga.
Today we decided to join other Kenyans here to pass our message to the government of Kenya that we have to expand the freedom of speech.
U.S. online store Amazon said it has settled a major tax claim in France and from now on will start declaring all its earnings in the country locally. Amazon has not revealed how much it paid after a French claim for nearly 200 million euros covering 2006 to 2010. Elementary schools will be closed in Tehran due to heavy fog caused by pollution. They have also announced that traffic restrictions will be imposed, allowing cars on the street in alternating shifts depending on their number plates.
With pollution there comes 1001 diseases and problems. I have a 2-month-old baby that I have to take to the doctor tomorrow. It's nerve-wracking. This pollution affects people's minds and souls. They don't act and it makes things worse. Basically, our safety is a catastrophe.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesyourtv.net/English. And you should join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
Bueno, mi nombre es Diego Perrota, soy artista visual argentino. Uno en el tiempo